buenos dias. I want to start by having maybe our panelists introduce themselves, if that's okay. Go ahead, Ross.
That's fine, Maya. Yeah, sure, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I realise we're competing with happy hour, so we've got a bit of a tough slot here. If anyone wants to bring the beers in, feel free. So we'll try and make this a fun and interactive session. I think that's probably most important at this time of day. I'm Ross, co-founder and CEO of Fan3. We are a fan engagement platform that works across music, sport, and entertainment. We're very fortunate to work with some of the biggest intellectual property in the world. We brought the fans of the likes of Nicki Minaj, Zayn from One Direction, Zed, Wimbledon Tennis, KSI, Misfits Boxing, on-chain. So excited to talk with this panel about those experiences, and hopefully you can take something away.
Hi everyone, I'm Max. I'm newly head of sports at Feature, and what we do is we have a technology that basically allows you to passively earn digital assets as you engage with any type of content on any streaming platform. Originally, we come from a movies and entertainment background, but we are now venturing into the sports space. We have actually just launched the trailer for our series that we're producing called Lollipop Racing, which is going to be very cool. And yeah, I'm happy to dive into the interesting topic at hand today.
Hey everybody, my name is Ross Basri. It's rare that we have two Rosses in a room, but we have two on the same panel, so you know it's going to be a good one. Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Uptop. We build blockchain-based loyalty programs for sports teams. And you know, when you think about sports, you talk about community, you talk about excitement, you talk about history and permanence. You really, really have that in the world of sports. So we think sports and blockchain is just kind of a match made in heaven. Super excited about our first major league rollout coming here for the new NBA regular season next week. So for those of you who are fans, the NBA is kicking off next week. So we're super excited to be rolling out the fan rewards program for a team there. I'll be able to talk more about that next week in public. But yeah, super, super excited to be here. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I'd like to start with the main question, that is why tokenize loyalty programs? Because I feel like all of you guys started from the get-go on-chain loyalty programs, and each one of you have such a interesting background. You came with a lot of knowledge on your specific fields to kind of build this loyalty programs and fan engagement platforms. So I would love to hear, I can maybe start with Ross Basri, on how do you think that tokenizing loyalty programs will benefit sports teams in a way that maybe traditional models wouldn't?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think to understand why, you have to go back to first principles. And, in building our platform, we studied the best loyalty programs in the whole world, and that really comes from the airlines. So I'm sure many of you even took flights to get here, so I'm sure you're familiar. But you can earn miles for flying, but the best programs in the world, I'm talking about Delta Sky Miles, for example, have this feature of interoperability, right? So you can actually earn Delta Sky Miles and earn miles for your once or twice a year vacation when you get your morning coffee at Starbucks. In order to do this, unfortunately, because they've built on Web2 rails, you have to go to deltastarbucks.com and link both accounts. It's a very annoying process. To make that even more annoying, if you want to earn Delta Sky Miles when you take a Lyft, you can do that, but you need to go to deltalift.com and link your two accounts. So you can see where I'm going with this. The benefit of blockchain and decentralized identity in general is that it unlocks this layer of interoperability for us right off the shelf. And that's why we love it. That's why our customers love it, is because you can create these loyalty ecosystems the same way Delta Sky Miles has done over, tens of years, and having invested billions of dollars. We can do that kind of right off the shelf, and it's super simple and easy. So that's why we love it, and that's why our clients love it.
Do you guys have anything to add, or?
Loads. Let's get into it. I think I'd like to try and make this quite relevant because we've got quite a small audience, and I can talk about examples across Formula One, football, tennis, soccer. just show of hands, let's understand what sort of audience we've got here. Who's into Formula One? 2. Soccer? Okay, let's talk about soccer. I thought that might be the case. I'm going to call it football because I'm English. So when we think about loyalty and how it sits currently in the ecosystem of intellectual property and sports rights, fundamentally these businesses are very archaic in terms of their marketing strategies and their data ownership. So when we talk about Manchester United, they have a 1 billion digital reach, right, in their audience and social media engagement. Their stadium holds 85,000 people, tiny fraction of that. Their membership and loyalty program and season ticket allocation is just 50,000 people. Yet they have 216 fan clubs in 60 countries. The latest incorporated this year was Seattle, Switzerland, and southern China. So there's people in southern China loyal to this football club that they have no idea who they are. So how do you create a global engagement product that isn't specific to stadium attendance, which the current membership and ticketing and membership policies are, to aggregate and bring together this global audience in a way that's interoperable and accessible? And for me, that can only sit on the blockchain. Aside with that, think how passionate all these people are in southern China about Manchester United, and it is a fundamental part of their personal identity, which lives online. So we can give them the ability to own an asset that represents who they are as Manchester United fans and display that in an ecosystem. There are so many reasons why this is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's great points on both sides. And I think looking at it from a more brand standpoint, as sports in general is an industry that's really driven by sponsorships, by a lot of product placement, especially in the content that fans are engaging with online. A lot of brands struggle to really, touch potential customers or fans when you think about kind of middle to lower funnel marketing metrics. A lot of brands are spending a lot of money on endorsement deals, basically for exposure, but a lot of them really struggle with middle to lower funnel metrics. And I think what we're trying to do at Feature is really provide a bridge for brands to touch these customers by not having them change their habits or their routines anyway. So fans are always looking to engage with content on all the different OTT platforms that exist. So if we take the Manchester United example, you have Manchester United TV that a lot of these fans who aren't able to attend the games, for example, are engaging with content online. Now, how can we provide a bridge for these sponsors like Adidas, for example, to engage with those brands? Well, through the passive issuance of digital assets that is allowed through our technology, we allow these brands to basically unlock millions of hours of content that previously wasn't able to be unlocked through providing that touch point. So you could be watching a behind-the-scenes video of Manchester United's training sessions, for example, and actually unlock a digital asset passively while watching the piece of content of a drill that they're essentially doing. So you're learning more about what the training session is about. That could be powered by Adidas, or it could be purely a digital asset that represents the training kit that the players are using in that video, and perhaps a 10% discount to go into the Manchester United's mega store and actually buy it within 2 clicks. So really providing that bridge and those touch points for brands to interact also creates a lot more loyalty around not only the clubs themselves, but the sponsors that back them.
That's an interesting point. So also one important data point is that if you remove broadcasting and media rights from sports teams, 80 or 90% of the revenue that they generate is around in-stadium activities. So I think what you guys are building also creates data for sports teams or brands, merchandise, but how you can interact or create more entry points for brands to interact with your brand, with your platform. So I would love to hear maybe from your experience at Feature, what kind of new entry points you see that you guys are exploring with brands and IP that you feel like Tokenized Loyalty it puts you guys ahead or.
Sure. I
interesting.
mean, what I just described is what we're trying to build, that feature, and what we're building. I mean, what we've proven to a certain extent within movies and entertainment, and really what we want to bring into sports. As I mentioned, I mean, sports is an industry that's driven by product placement, driven by sponsorships. However, lacks, let's say, the infrastructure to actually exploit all of this, and that's where we come in essentially. And for the IPs, as you mentioned, you know, a lot of them have a lot of their revenue come from stadium activities, and to be able to unlock what essentially is a new layer of ad space based on, you know, the habits of their community already is massive. Providing these touch points and really also blurring the lines between what a fan engagement tool is and what advertising is really important. You know, when you go on YouTube, for example, nobody really likes to watch the ad before the actual video that they want to watch. It's really annoying. And what's even worse is if you're in the middle of a video, having the ad pop up in the middle of the video. Everybody hates that, and I have ad block. I try to use it as much as possible, but what we're trying to do essentially is allow brands to use the piece of content that people care about already as the ad itself. And really design campaigns focused more around middle to lower funnel metrics than just throwing money at different IPs for exposure. And those are the entry points or the touch points that we want to unlock for IPs, so that they can generate more sponsorship revenue from existing sponsors or even new sponsors. And then on the brand side, really unlock real touch points where they can where they can engage with potential customers, which also provides things like, you know, a lot of wallet data, where in the end, the end goal is obviously to personalize the kind of ad experience as much as possible, so that you as a user, you're getting the ad that you actually care about in front of you based on the data that we're able to collect, right? And as a fan or as a user of these OTT platforms, you're not having to change any of the routines. If anything, we're just adding value to the routine that you already have, and you're earning, you know, potential rewards, and you're getting involved in different gamified experiences, and that's, you know, only available due to the technology that we're able to use right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, some really interesting things you've mentioned there around content and consumption and how that can create brand loyalty. And I think a lot of sports teams and sports properties now must consider themselves brands, and the customer acquisition process needs to be thought of in a very marketing-centric and content consumption way. So let's talk about Formula One, because I did see some hands come up, and we're working in Formula One at the moment, and my experience of dealing with these brands has been fascinating, because we also do a lot of work in music, and in music and sport, there are two types of fandom for me. There's tribal fandom, and there's transient fandom. Tribal fandom, for example, River Plate here, you've grown up, your family's supported River Plate for 90 years, you are a River Plate fan, and you are tribally associated with that football club. In Formula One, they've seen 100% growth in audience because of Netflix Drive to Survive. Now, all those people that have watched Netflix Drive to Survive, some of you in this audience probably transitioned into a Formula One fan because of that program, are content hungry. They've seen behind the scenes of the races, they've got to know the drivers, but when they go into Formula One as a fan, they are transient. As far as I'm aware, no one is a fan of Gene Haas, who owns Haas Automotive, which is one of the leading competing teams in Formula One. Not many people are a fan of Red Bull, which are obviously destroying the Drivers' Championship for the last few years. And you've got some Ferrari fans, which are associated with Italy, and there is a legacy relationship there. But fundamentally, Formula One fans are completely transient. So if you can create an on-chain loyalty program, as McLaren have done, where they gave away 2.8 million NFTs in the last season to 850,000 new wallets, they're creating stickiness in their fandom, which benefits the brand deals that you talk about, it benefits the audience aggregation, it benefits engagement, and they can now start to serve content in a token-gated way to all of those fans. So there's so much benefit to thinking about how sports properties now need to approach this in a very mature marketing way, but using on-chain tools.
That's super interesting, because, I mean, not all fans are created equal, right? So it's very hard to have one playbook for everyone in every brand. So, yeah, I'd love if you, because you work with a lot of music artists. What do you see different between treating a fan or creating loyalty with sports fan? And maybe Ross, both Rosses can actually chime in on this one.
I mean, I think your quote there, all fans aren't created equal, is fundamentally right. Even within music, and we also have a live touring and production company. So we have 19 artists touring all over the world at the moment, from hip-hop to K-pop. And the way that a K-pop fan behaves in an arena in South Korea is very, very different to an EDM fan in a nightclub in Vegas, who is very different to one of our artists, Max Richter, who's an opera singer in the Sydney Opera House. So it goes again back to basic kind of marketing and sales needs of what's the value exchange between the artist and the fan, and how do you create something that those fans want to engage with. But you cannot create that in a blanket fashion that this is a blueprint for a tokenized loyalty scheme, and this is how we'll roll it out across these intellectual properties in all these different verticals, because it just doesn't work. We launched a project for Nicki Minaj on her Pink Friday 2 World Tour, which is the largest grossing tour for a female rapper in history. I had no idea how crazy her fans were. They're called Barbs, and they are, in a good way, psychotic. It is the most insane fandom I've ever seen. And what they want versus a very different demographic of Zed's audience, who's another one of our clients who go to his Vegas shows, is totally different. So you have to understand and go back to basic principles of what is the business and audience need, and how do you create something that will engage with that audience and create long tail benefit.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on something really important, which is value exchange, as you mentioned, and understanding your fans' motivations and behaviors based on the incentives that you set up for them. So speaking specifically to what I've been working on, for this fan rewards program for the NBA, they're actually the team that we're working with is actually sunsetting another Web3 loyalty program. And to give you some insight as to what I'm talking about with value exchange, that program, which they largely considered, I wouldn't say a failure, but not meeting the goals that they had expected for it, was sort of a freemium kind of thing where you could sign up and there were these virtual lockers where fans could collect certain items to fill their locker with. But then there was a next tier, which was a paid kind of status version where fans, I think they were expected to pay something like $20 a month, so like a couple $100 a year. And to put it in perspective, like I believe that tier had something like 100 users or something. So you had 100,000 on the free tier and 100 on the paid tier. And that was what they would consider not a good outcome. With what we're building, we've kind of flipped that on its head. So we're not using NFTs sort of as a be-all end-all, like just collect this thing and throw it in your wallet and it's done. As I talked about, it's more about interoperability and creating loyalty networks with other brands. And therefore, the value exchange actually comes from, allowing, if you're a big sports team with a really big pull in your local area, allowing other businesses to come into your loyalty network and extracting value from the network effect that you create there, and then actually giving that value back to the fans. So whereas before they were trying to extract value from fans with their Web3 program, what we've built is actually the opposite, where we're actually trying to give value back to the fans. So, this is what we've kind of engineered as being a much better sort of value exchange when it comes to fan loyalty.
That's super interesting. And maybe on the same note, because I think this is important for anyone building in the space. So what do you think are the challenges with maybe pitching you guys as platforms to artists, sports teams? I don't want to go too much into the other areas because I want to keep on the topic, but I'm very interested to hear you guys' experiences on pitching you guys' product. Do you guys mention blockchain at all? Do you guys mention NFTs? What has been your experience?
I mean, I can start if you want. We certainly don't mention NFTs.
No.
That's for sure. No, but I think in sports, the cynical, let's say, point of view in sports is that if it makes money, it makes sense. At the end of the day. We talk about fan engagement as this big thing, but the fan engagement isn't the end all and be all of everything. Fan engagement is there in the end for them to generate more money, whether that be the IP, whether that be the brand. In the end, it's a business, and everybody wants to make more money. And I think that's where you have to start. I mean, if you're providing an infrastructure, whether it be on chain or not on chain, they don't really care. If it makes sense for them, and you kind of dumb it down to a language that they understand. That's the way to go about it. If you're providing value for the key stakeholders that are involved in whatever you're building, and you explain that in a coherent way that they can understand, without using the word NFT or anything like that, that's usually the way to go about it. I would say from
Should
our
we
experience.
rebrand NFTs?
We can try.
Yeah, I'd sort of bring a point that was made up in a previous conversation on stage about the NFT being obviously the technology, not the product. Like in music and sport, when we pitch, we do not say the word NFT. And it is so frowned upon. I've seen some, the reactions are typically like, sometimes, yeah, we tried that, it didn't work. And then we dig into what they tried, and it's typically they tried to sell something very early on and saw it as a monetization, immediate opportunity to deliver something very average and get maybe 10,000 people to buy it. They don't understand the fundamental architecture of the technology and the benefits that it will bring. So we just talk about customer need in pitches now. Do you know who your fans are? No. Have you got any data on your fans? No. Does your ticketing agent give you any data of who goes to your shows or to your games? No. All right, well, let's start there and let's build this data set for you and this engagement strategy around the distribution of using a new technology. And I think that's the way that we're able to work with some of these businesses. And I know you've done a lot of work in tennis, and we work with Wimbledon, which is, for me, the sort of premier tennis tournament in the world. And those commercial decisions are made by a committee of over 60-year-old people with a very staid impression of how we should engage with their audience. So convincing these people is not easy, but there are ways that you can do it by thinking about the business need and finding what that thing is that's driving them forward. And for Wimbledon, it's we have an aging audience. How do we engage young people to care about Wimbledon and the lawn tennis club? So they need to look at new ways, and we ended up building and supporting them to rebuild Center Court in Roblox. We did a virtual hill with American Express where people could come in a metaverse type experience and watch virtually the tennis. And so there are ways that you can do it without talking about the dirty word.
Yeah, and I think the Wimbledon example is great because I think the word you used was "stayed" to describe, how Wimbledon kind of approaches new sorts of launches and innovation and stuff like that. I think Wimbledon is a quite clear example because of the the storied nature and the history. But I think it's true with every major league to some extent. The truth of the matter is these are extremely profitable businesses that have been operating for a very long time, and they don't really need to jump a shark to introduce something that could be perceived as risky. We all in this room know that giving an NFT to a fan is not risky, but unfortunately we're still crossing a gap where normies aren't fully fully aware of the technology and its risks and benefits. And the truth is there's a crypto hater in every room, right? Probably not in this room, I hope, but in every room when you're out talking to enterprises, there's a crypto hater. But the good news is we don't talk about this as crypto, at least in terms of what we do. What we talk about is everything I mentioned before: loyalty networks, interoperability. And we don't get any resistance around that when we say, just like they don't want to know whether I use like a NoSQL database or a SQL database. They don't really care that we're tracking our points on a decentralized ledger or something like that. It's just a technological decision. That's where we have to keep in our experience the pitches as just a conversation around features, benefits, and if they ask a question about the tech, we can get into it and talk about it. But we try not to talk about the tech powering the features we advertise.
I think, sorry, just to add one last thing to what both Rosses said. I think what's very important and what a lot of people got wrong kind of at the beginning of this whole kind of Web3 sports journey, let's say, is people were using Web3 just to use it. And when you understand the product that you're offering and that, the technology is really providing more value or it's really adding to what exists, and you're not just using it to use it, you're not just tokenizing to tokenize, for example. I think that's the most important thing. And I think what a lot of us face a lot of pushback now because that happened. But if you're able to really explain the benefits of what you're doing without having to go into the tech, then you know that you're on the right way, I would say.
And I think we have to recognize, and probably everybody in this room needs to think about the fact that this industry has got this really wrong over and over again over the last 3 years, particularly in sports. We've seen football teams distributing fan tokens very early on that were then claimed by opposition football teams who then voted for all of the things that they wanted the club to do badly. How is that ever a sensible strategy to allow that to happen? We saw huge FTX deals across cricket, football, all went to shit and left huge gaps in P&Ls that the boards of these associations are going, well, I don't want to get involved in that again. So there's been so many challenges that unfortunately when we're pitching, we have to kind of objection handle and overcome. And we've sort of made that for ourselves in the way that early on we were trying to monetize too early. Now it has to be a long-term strategy of distribution of asset, engagement of audience, and thinking about 3, 5, 10-year benefits for brand partnerships, data aggregation. And we just need to slow down a little bit and think about what are the business needs and how do we align with those.
That's super interesting. Also, that's kind of like a hot take, but do you guys have any native tokens in your platform? No, that's
No.
what I thought. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so maybe we can jump into the future, what you guys are thinking on where we go from here. Is it building more for Web3 audiences or keep going towards the Web2 audiences and kind of having almost like a Trojan horse type of application that they don't know it's blockchain? But when they realize, oh, actually, this is cool. I own my data. I can maybe go to a Nicki Minaj concert and maybe go to Manchester. This is very random, but if I go to both, eventually I can get targeted. I specifically reward for that specific user that it's not able, Web2 platforms are not able to. So yeah, I would love to hear from the future, what you guys have been working towards right now.
Yeah, I think it's the latter of what you said. I mean, I think what should be happening is that, non-Web3 native people are delighted and surprised by the experiences we can provide by leveraging blockchain tech. So I go back to this is just what I know and it's what I do every day. So I always go back to this. But, I think the level of frustration I see when I talk to Delta Sky Miles users when they have to link all of these accounts to earn Sky Miles at Lyft, at Starbucks, at Ticketmaster, at Hertz, versus what we can provide where it's if you want to earn your favorite team's points when you go to McDonald's or when you go to the grocery store or when you go to the gas station, all that can happen sort of under the hood without a lot of extra effort in a way that it can't happen in a Web2 environment. And so I think what we're going to see is we're going to see delightful experiences that weren't possible before bubble up using Web3 technology, but not necessarily have that be front and center and have that be kind of advertised as such.
Sure. I'm so excited about the future. I think that the way that anybody that has substantial intellectual property, whether you are a music star like Nicki Minaj with 230 million Instagram followers, or you're Real Madrid with 1 billion social media reach, there is so much consumer engagement opportunity that has been lagging so far behind with technological innovation. So there's so much that can come. We don't think about Web2 audiences or Web3 audiences, we just think about fans. Day to day, we're out dealing with people who look at these properties as a fundamental part of their identity. We are in the space where we're seeing people faint. I saw a girl wet herself when she met one of One Direction. These are things that people care so much about. And if we can improve their experiences and bring them closer to the things that they care about, that is a hugely exciting thing. And we're allowing the rights holders, the artists, the intellectual property to understand their audiences and get closer to the people that are funding their business, listening to their songs, buying their football shirts, and they've never known that before. So this is a hugely exciting future where I think you just can't think about like Web2 and Web3 audiences. You're thinking about a passionate consumer that you need to bring closer to something that they care about.
For sure. No, I think Ross hit the nail on the head there, and I think just to add something else to that, I think what's important, especially in sports, is fans of sports teams, of athletes, they have, at least from a digital perspective, their routines, their habits. You know, they like to check out the highlights of certain platforms. They like to check out the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I think tapping into that is very important. Not trying to reinvent the wheel. And I think a good example of that was, you know, the fan token example in football, for example. That was never going to turn out well. You know, it's okay to try and, you know, especially at the beginning of an industry that's so new, it's okay to try and push the barrier a bit in one way or another. I think we're at a point now where it's been tried. We've seen that in sports it doesn't work. So it's really about taking a step back and looking into the consumer behaviors of fans and allowing the technology or using the technology to enhance that. Because that's what's really going to make the fans happy. That's what's going to generate more money for the IPs. That's what's going to put, you know, sponsors in a better position when it comes to actually converting and actually seeing tangible ROI on things. So I think that's where the future is when it comes to using this technology in sports. It's really not about trying to reinvent the wheel. It's really trying to tap into stuff that has worked and already works, and you know, understanding the behavior of sports fans, because as Ross mentioned, you know, you have the transient fans and you have the tribal fans, and that's always been like that, and that will never change. And sports is not something that's going to go away. Sports is going to exist and get bigger and bigger for the rest of time. So really tapping into that and seeing how the technology can provide more value is really where I see things going. And the technology from a digital perspective and from a content perspective really allows, I mean, at least how we see it, a lot of unlock when it comes to touch points between all these different stakeholders that was not, you know, possible before. That's where we see the future, and I think it's an exciting one because, you know, as a consumer, if I could get rid of all the ads that I really don't care about, and I could actually engage with ads that maybe don't seem like ads for brands that I do care about, that's going to make me happy as a consumer, and that's going to, in the end, drive conversion for the brands. And having a fan engagement kind of, let's say, tool to it for the IPs to then engage with them, tying all three things together, I think it's happy days for everybody.
Well said.
Yeah, and I think to expand on that, and a future trend that I would implore anyone in here who's considering integrating any kind of token or loyalty strategy, I'm sure Ross, you'll attest to this, is it has to be a joined up strategy with everything else that you're doing. We made this mistake early on with a boxing brand, influencer boxing brand that's owned by KSI. It's called Misfits. You might have seen it, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, they all just kick the shit out of each other and people love it. But we did Misfits Priority Pass, which was this standalone Web3 loyalty program that wasn't integrated with the rest of the Misfits ecosystem. And it did okay. And Manchester United have done the same thing with this side Red Devils, 777 NFTs. It did okay. We're rebranding the Misfits Priority Pass to Misfits Unlocked, and it becomes a central loyalty pillar to the rest of the ecosystem within the Misfits brand identity. And it links into their product, it links into merch, it links into access, it links into live, and it has to be a fundamental part of the overarching brand strategy if it's going to be successful. That was a big learning for us this year.
Really cool. Should we wrap up? Thank you guys so much. This was so informative and
get a beer,
interesting.
No? Happy hour?
Yeah,
Let's
happy
get a
hour.
beer.
Unless we have any questions. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about messing up your happy hour, but I have a follow-up question to Maya's token hot take. like in the past, like if I was remembering, I ran a Web3 development agency for a project of Mila Kunis on Avalanche, the second season. We used a token called Dick Punch, where the community could send big punches between each other. So it makes sense. It was a Web3 project, but for many other projects, my question is, like, most of the use cases that we work with are closer to what you do. So you don't have your own token and you work with blockchain like you, Ross, Basri described, like on the back end. So it's invisible to brands and to users mostly. So how do you deal with a blockchain having their own token? Because for some cases you can do airdrops or you can use cross-mint for mitigating the friction, but how's the token relation between your platforms, which are like user-facing, mostly Web 2, and a blockchain that has a token?
Yeah, I can take that because you pointed out that we largely think about blockchain in the back, and you're right. We don't expect our users to come into our ecosystem with Avalanche tokens, for example, in their wallet, but we want them to have the benefits of blockchain. So we think about we've built relayer architectures where we can give a fan a wallet securely, custody their private key, and kind of pay the gas on their behalf. And we think of that just the same way we think about the way we pay for hosting bills on AWS or something like that. Like the gas we pay to Avalanche, the gas fees that we pay to Avalanche are sort of just the cost of doing business on Avalanche and using that as your system of record. But yeah, we subsidize all the fees. We don't expect our users to know or think about that native token.
And you guys?
Anyone else? Sorry, it's really hard to see. I think we're good. Thank you, guys. This was fun.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.